I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Arcane Mark. On today's show, we are going to be showing you how to design a compelling villain for any tabletop RPG, and really a lot of other types of media besides. And by doing that, we are not going to be focusing on the statistics of that villain. So it's going to be about designing a villain. If we were going to be building villain statistics, we would do a build an NPC workshop or build a monster workshop for a monstrous villain. Those are more about statistics. Whereas here, it's going to be more about the character of the villain, what makes them a villain. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to think at all about some of the statistical components. There's really one statistical component that's going to come up during this episode. I'm going to explain it while everyone who's watching here come up with a villain concept, because we're going to vote for that first.
Some key aspects of the concept of the villain that you might consider might be, what are they trying to achieve? What are their goals? What are their motivations? Or how do they style themselves?
Or
what role do they take in the story?
It may even just be something that's based on aesthetics, or that's based on what is this villain? What is their high concept? Now, while you're coming up with that in chat, we're going to build whatever villain people come up with here to show that you can build a compelling villain on the fly by combining these pieces together and having each one lead to the next. I'm going to talk about the one element of rules mechanics that is going to come up here, and that's going to be rough power level. Now, we don't need to actually go into Pathfinder 2 level or D&D CR or Shadow Dark level, or even something like Fabula Ultima, where the villains may have a scale where it's this is a world-class level threat that they've escalated to after they ran out of their villain points and underwent a story escalation, or whatever that is. We're going to need to roughly know, because there is definitely a big difference between the goblin warband leader who is threatening a small village and the ancient Lich King who has discovered the secrets of the gods and is threatening to blow up the entire world,
or destroy half, or Thanos or whatever, gonna destroy half of all life,
of all life in the universe, with a finger snap.
Exactly.
It's a little different than of a villain than that goblin warband leader who is threatening the survival of, even if the entire village is the PC's base, and so that goblin warband leader who keeps sending other threats is a legitimate villain for them in their early stages of the game. We're going to need to know that roughly before we make some of the other decisions about this villain. And you know what? It may even be implied by the concept, depending on what concept we choose for this villain that we're making here today. So we're going to give you an example of building a villain, let you see the thought process that we would use. We have industry experience in creating villains and making them more compelling, and in sort of trying to make the story for your tabletop RPG. So with all that said, there is some element of mechanics beyond the level that may come into it, but not in the specific. But when we talk about a villain's power source or something like that, we may say this Lich Lord who could threaten to destroy the entire world due to stealing the knowledge of the gods. Power source is necromancy and armies of minions, plus the knowledge of the gods that allows for weapons of mass destruction that could destroy the world.
And you might also see it considered when we talk about who are the villain's allies and resources that they can call upon, making sure that those generally thematically fit. You're not going to want the world destroying lich to have basic goblins as their primary minions. You're going to want something that's going to feel...
The world-destroying Lich's primary minions are basic goblins, and their allies are a network of orphanages that are raising money to save puppies.
Yes. He wanted to make sense as a coherent concept.
Because the Lich believes that until he destroys the world, that the puppies should be safe.
We have
The first concept is a professor of forbidden knowledge whose research has world-ending consequences. All right, so that is
Solid idea,
professor of forbidden knowledge.
And that definitely implies certain things about the motivations and goals.
That's right. So every concept actually will give us several of the pieces that we need of a villain.
Exactly.
That's the secret of a concept, because different concepts come from different directions, and we will need to fill in the pieces we don't get from the concept. So the second one
Vigilante
is
who asked for protection money.
yes.
Now here we're seeing a good example of like threat at the level of a small community versus threat at the level of like the world.
And honestly, the vigilante who asks for protection money could be a big problem even in a major city.
Yes.
But it's definitely not someone who's has a world-ending consequences like this professor of forbidden knowledge would be.
Yeah.
On the other hand, also like the professor of forbidden knowledge versus the vigilante clearly can have very different demeanors and very different like relationships to their villainy. Like the professor maybe, and if we did that one, is not trying to end the world, but wants to perform the research for science.
Yes. And the vigilante may think of themselves as being justified in what they're doing as well.
They may feel that that the city was corrupt, and that with everyone paying them protection money and having them run things around here, that they are stopping other crimes from being caused.
And that's
by
one of the
basically
things we
seizing
want to
control.
talk about too is, you know, how does the villain think about themselves? You know?
Absolutely. So, do we have a third idea for a villain? If not, we can vote between the professor and the vigilante.
I'm not seeing a third one,
All right,
so I think we can go ahead and
vote
give that a
one
shot.
or two. One for the professor of forbidden knowledge, whose research has world-ending consequences, and two for the vigilante, who is demanding protection money. And we'll see which of these is chosen by chat, and then that's the villain we're going to build today. And when we build that villain, you'll see how to incorporate different elements into the villain that makes them both a villain that your group will be engaged with as an opponent, and one that they can sort of feel a connection to, both hating that villain and perhaps understanding them in a way as well as a person, rather than having them just literally be some kind of a caricature of just some
For
kind of
the
for the
evils.
evils. All right, so we have 2 votes for the professor of forbidden knowledge. Rico was on an unplanned work call.
I did not get to think of or put in ridiculous concepts.
There you go. So it's going to have to be the professor of forbidden knowledge, I think, at this
looks
point.
like.
Has 2 votes, and that doesn't include, in either case, the people who proposed the 2 propositions. So let's go for the professor of forbidden knowledge. So we've got this professor who is researching forbidden knowledge, and their research has world-ending consequences. So I think the first thing we want to think about is this a professor who is so moved by tragedy that they seek to end the world with their research? Or is it a professor who seeks the forbidden knowledge so deeply that they don't care that it's possible that their research has world-ending consequences? And I think that the second one is more interesting than the first.
Or is it a professor who is in denial about the fact that their research has world-ending consequences, potentially because they are convinced that they have it all under control?
That they're going to do it right.
They'll do it right.
And that, yeah, sure, there may be some minuscule chance that some really horrible thing is going to happen, but that is very unlikely, and this is all for science. So, and then Rohit asks, is the act of the research itself forbidden, or is the outcome forbidden? And see, I was thinking also like the topic of research was forbidden as well. So the idea of like that this researcher is researching into some kind of forbidden topic. For example, in the world of Alucard, they may be researching like the Enigmas, which are this mysterious evil group of deific beings who seek to cause serious problems and potentially corrupt or destroy maybe everything. And so, like, that would be an example of, like, they want to research something that is generally considered forbidden as a topic, but they want to use it in some other way. Like, for instance, researching the enigmas or some other evil thing, but to find an energy source that they're going to use to sort of power things.
And in a lot of these sorts of forbidden knowledge stories, there's the idea of the character who believes that they are the one who's going to make the deal with the devil and come out on top.
Right. It's also possible that they don't realize that it's forbidden or dangerous when they're starting their research. I mean, for instance, like in the sort of, I guess, the Age of Legends in the Wheel of Time series, the people who accidentally, like, released some of the seal on the big bad evil were not trying to do that. They just found that there was a source of energy that they wanted to use to help people. And so they tapped into it, and they found out, oops, the source of energy that wasn't the main source of energy was the big bad evil. And now it's partially been freed because we drilled a hole into it.
And then at that point, if they're like, well, but now we need that energy source,
So, like, and then some of them continued researching it after that point, and that was part of what made them extremely evil. So we've got some comments in chat. Maybe the researcher is the one who made the knowledge forbidden and is just a hypocrite. Another, my research into the spell exterminate all life is purely theoretical. And then I was thinking about Mbot from Cytonic. I'm not really sure about Mbot from Cytonic, but I think that all of these ideas are a pretty good starting point when we're looking at this researcher. So let's think about this. What is the researcher's end or like true goal of the research? So was
do they want
to destroy the world? Do they want to do something that advances science or that helps people or that like cures world hunger or something like that? But
do they want power for themselves? Is that why they're delving into this well?
Do they just want to be acknowledged? Although even something like power or acknowledgement is generic enough that we'll want to dig into why they would be acknowledged.
Yes. Do they want to be like, do they want to become like a ruler or like a god, or do they want to become like, do they want to have the power to, or do they want like a power source for a grand invention, or what do they want?
So I'm thinking the fact that it is a professor of forbidden knowledge means that.
So they're also instructing others.
Yes, at the very least they have students, right? They're like a researcher who is a professor, so they're working at some kind of university or something like that. So that suggests to me that it's at least not like a would-be princeling or something like that.
Yeah.
That they, because of the fact that they chose to work at an institution of learning, it probably means they do want to advance knowledge.
Yeah.
That they want to achieve some sort of
and I see a note here,
goal.
maybe they want the power in case another planet invades. So maybe maybe they were researching some kind of like a defensive measure.
Maybe they were worried that someone from another plane of existence, like hell, would invade, or even another planet.
Yeah.
So it's like, if the devils or the demons are going to invade, we need to be prepared to stop them. And one of the ways we could do that is with this sort of phase-shifting technology or magic, really, because we're making this for any RPG, so we're gonna just call it magic, but we know that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. You shoot through the portal to the other plane, and it will sort of disconnect them. And also blow up a lot of stuff on the other side so that it's hard for them to just reopen another portal there. And if they brought their armies there, it should be able to destroy their army. But the problem being that anything that's strong enough to blow up a chunk of hell or the abyss might also be able to blow up your entire world.
Yes.
And
so it's do not touch levels of, are they then imagine they're tapping into some sort of fundamental energy of creation or destruction that.
And Rohit was inspired for that from Ultron, from Age of Ultron, of I am the only one who can protect you. There's all these other things. So in this case, then they would have to be they're tapping into something that's best left untapped into, a type of magic that is considered forbidden, that is so anathema to existence that it's able to even be a threat to hell or the abyss or the outer rift or whatever you want to call it, or super tech aliens, whatever you're going to call it. They're working on this, and they're convinced they are going to get it right, and they're going to be the only thing that saves the world from this threat.
And there's a mention that research could draw the eyes of powerful beings.
Oh, it definitely will. If you're hell, or A, you don't want hell to be blown up by this. B, you might just want to take
it for yourself, yes.
And then use it to wage war on
and
everybody else. And then you
also wonder, who might be whispering in this researcher's ear.
That's right.
Who might be in their circle of influence, who isn't exactly an ally. So I guess we can consider what our goals are here. So it seems like in the long term, we want to be able to, we want to protect the world.
We want to protect the world from devastation.
Yes, and unite all peoples within our nation.
I mean, maybe we don't have to do that because we have a way to protect the world from devastation ourselves.
So our goal is to protect the world.
The goal is to protect the world from invasion by another plane or planet. And so, in order to achieve that goal, that's our long-term goal. So, our sort of intermediate goal is
probably complete the plane sever or whatever the weapon we're doing.
Yes, we're gonna call it the planar schism.
Yes.
We're going to create the planar schism.
Yes. And maybe in the short term, we need to acquire some kind of material that's needed for the planar schism.
Or we need to find a source of the forbidden information, for example. So, we could have short-term goals that include acquire sort of, we'll call it exotic material from the forbidden realms. And then also,
this is a placeholder for any kind of MacGuffin. Yes,
exactly. And then there's also find the alien archive of enigmatic lore. So these are the kind of goals this character would have that the PCs might try to stop.
Yes.
Now, honestly, acquiring exotic material from the Forbidden Realms in itself is probably not that dangerous. But if the PCs are trying to stop the planar schism from being built, they know that they need to stop this professor's schemes.
This is probably an opponent that the PCs are going to deal with multiple times.
Yes, it seems like this would be a recurring villain, so we want to think about this. So, what about this villain's connections? Well... honestly, most people probably wouldn't want to be invaded by hell. So, honestly, this villain may have a lot of connections, especially if it's not obvious to most people, unlike the PCs, that the planar schism has a world-ending consequences.
So they probably have connections within their university and research system. They probably may have connections within, the military and... With political forces?
Yeah, it would be the university, so that would be things like the provost. Then military.
They're also going to have their students and fellow researchers.
Yeah, that's true. So they would have students, fellow researchers, allied fellow researchers. Because when you're
Not
in a
all of them,
university,
yes.
they're gonna have rivals and people who
Yes,
don't like you
absolutely.
because of the petty politics in the university. So you're gonna have the military. Maybe there's a general. There's some kind of a general who fought devils before and is worried about this. You even may have backing from a powerful political patron.
Yes.
So, like, maybe the second princess supports this guy.
I would also say they probably have a connection with an ulterior motive.
Well,
Like, kind of shadowy figure that's helping them out because they want...
I think that makes sense as well. Like, a lot of these people may have their own motives. Like, the provost wants to promote the university.
Yeah, well, or like Matt
The
was
general
saying,
wants to
like
fight the
a
devils.
malevolent force, like somebody who specifically is like wants.
I'll just call this last one an enigma because that's what it would be called in the world of Battle Zoo, which is just literally this is possibly a puppeteer, or at the very least is trying to cause problems and just wants their forbidden lore to become more known.
Yes.
And to be established, but has to follow some sort of cosmic rules of engagement and can't just do it themselves. So, the provost wants to promote the university's prestige, and we want to know what these allies all care about the most.
Because then that's going to help you figure out why they may not keep working.
You can leverage them if the PCs want to try to get them on their side. The general fought devils before, never wants to see the horrors of war with devils again. The second princess wants to...
Mark's hot take of the day. Honestly, most people probably wouldn't want to be invaded by hell.
Yeah, I think so. Second princess wants to promote her claim to the throne. Enigma...
Who knows?
Who knows, but...
Probably
wants to spread the forbidden knowledge in even worse ways than the planar schism. So these are some potential allies. So obviously this professor has a lot of support within the kingdom, and it's going to make it difficult for the PCs to just go up and murder the professor. But if at some point they're convinced that this professor is going to create the planar schism and kill everyone, they might not care about that. They might go up to attack the professor. So we want to think about some other precautions against that, but before we get to that, since we created the ally connections, we probably want to make like their rivals or enemies.
I think that one of the ones you can easily have here is like
University again.
Yeah, so you maybe
Academic
like some
rivals.
kind of academic rivals. You also may have someone who's like an investigator who's figuring out that things are going wrong. Maybe they've started to see the ripples of this weapon being developed and the effects that it's having, or they're like some kind of an auditor who's like noticed that there's something seriously suspicious going on here.
So I think that's a good idea. I think let's add both an ally and enemies in the magical realm. So for a connection that's an ally, it's actually we're gonna add like the Church of a Righteous Deity.
Yes.
And then their motivation in here, like the high priestess of this church is supporting them, and their motivation is they don't like devils. And so on the other hand, we also have maybe like some kind of occult scholar, like enemies, sketchy occult scholars.
Yes.
And why are they doing this? They noticed ripples of weirdness in the magic. So, who are you going to trust? The sketchy occult scholars or the Church of a Righteous Deity?
Yeah.
But it turns out the sketchy occult scholars...
I was also thinking, sort of like the super lawful, like, enforcers of cosmic order type folks.
And so the academic rivals could be good enemies in the university, but they have skeletons in their own closet. The sketchy occult scholars notice ripples of weirdness and magic.
And Rico says, here's Liddell, here's next maybe an auditor is finding issues, because obviously auditors are natural allies of any party of adventurers.
There you go. Yeah, auditors, you never know.
Well, while we're talking about people who you may not necessarily trust as an adventurer.
So, the sketchy occult scholars notice the ripples of weirdness and magic, but they're considered eccentric and untrustworthy by society. So, other enemies could be devils.
Yep.
And demons. They don't want to be schism.
Yes.
But they also want to steal it.
Yep.
Also, they are devils and demons.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
So, some kind of cosmic auditor. Doesn't or wants to stop the Enigma connection of the professor, but is so caught up in red tape.
Yes.
They can barely do anything directly.
Yep.
All right.
So they may serve as an information source for the PCs, or an ally that can't just solve the problem.
That's right. So now let's think about, what does the professor have? Like, it's great that the party's gonna become a pariah of everything if they actually kill this guy randomly and destroy all of his research, or her research. I guess we didn't say for the professor, their research. But that's not necessarily going to stop the PCs if they're like, well, yeah, our reputation doesn't matter. All that matters is to stop this.
Yeah. Well, there's also the question, if you stop the professor...
Maybe we should hire that vigilante who's charging protection money to help us.
Yeah. Also, like, is defeating the professor enough to stop the research from going forward?
Right, because the professor's fellow researchers and students may continue to carry it out. But if they blow up the prototype and kill the professor and burn the research notes, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So, let's see. So we're going to talk about the professor's power source. So the professor's power source is actually the early research for the planar schism. Has generated force field magic in the shape of maybe almost a suit that the professor uses for protection. So it's going to be drilling its way into and then exploding into hell. So it's planar. It's basically like a planar barrier that your attacks almost have to cross a plane to reach the professor. This is more of a
defenses than power source, though.
Sure, because the professor is mostly a threat due to researching things.
Yeah.
So it's the power source is the early research for the planar schism has produced various useful magical effects of lesser magnitude. Including this force field thing, which that's gonna be used for protection as well as to attack, because it can shoot out planar rifts. So this means that even though the professor themselves might not necessarily be good at punching you, or even actually an archmage in terms of having every single spell in existence, this powerful research that the professor has achieved so far makes the professor pretty difficult to beat unless you manage to catch the professor outside of the
and I imagine that the professor is often going to be found inside of their laboratory complex, which is then also guarded with its own layers of defenses.
That's right. And then there's going to be magical So that's going to be...
This could, for example, be a military base that the professor has been working on this research in that's protected.
Yep. So we're going to put magical defenses of the professor's laboratory, fully furnished by the general and the church. Magical defenses and guards.
Yes.
So these are going to be like sort of power sources but the
resources, I guess.
Power sources and resources.
Yeah.
Because some of these are not, like, literally the source, the one source of your power.
One of the things here is that it seems like this research isn't something that the professor can just be like, oh, I can easily just up and escape pod myself and my research out of here. So it really has to be more of like a fortified bunker type situation once you make it to the heart of things.
That's right. So now that we have these power sources and resources for the villain's main sort of base, and we know, okay, the military, the church, a good aligned or holy church are defending this place. There's tons of magical defenses. The professor themselves is like wearing this kind of rift suit, and it's going to be difficult to kill directly. So we can't just go in there and do that.
Yeah.
We might be able to socially try to
erode
some of the pillars of support. That's possible. But before we even do that, we want to be stopping some of these short-term goals, like gathering the exotic material or finding the alien archive of enigmatic lore. And because of the fact that the professor can't just move their research, they're probably going to be in their base doing certain things there. And that means, which is good for a villain, because you don't want the PCs to be literally directly fighting the villain every time.
Because the second you put the villain on screen, you have to be ready for the villain to get killed.
And if you want to know more about that, go back to our previous episode from a little while back about recurring villains. So this all means that it makes sense that this professor needs to send some of those allies, some of those students, some underlings out to do some of these short-term goals while continuing on iterating the main research. This is very important. There's a lot of villains in tabletop RPGs actually are really cool in general, but it just doesn't make sense that the villain is just ignoring these people who are thwarting them, or at least sending progressively stronger but just weak enough that they can deal with it minions, instead of just being like, okay, I'm going to do this myself. This professor has limited abilities to use this rift suit for protection, and is mainly doesn't even want to, probably doesn't want to kill people who are against their research. It just probably wants to convince them that their research is correct and not be killed by them.
Yeah.
Obviously may want to kill or detain someone who literally comes with lethal intent into their laboratory and attacks them, but just in general,
or just killing off their students. So I imagine that it's going to start off with. It starts off with the professor thinking, oh, that's an anomaly. Sometimes, this is valuable material. Other people might be going after it too, and then eventually realizes that the PCs are an actual direct threat and sends a more direct opposition to them. And because the professor has so many connections, I imagine it could be, is the professor going to try to have the PCs arrested?
Yeah, the professor might do that. So I would say that early encounters the PCs are going to go up against the professor, students, and underlings to stop some of the short-term goals. So then,
are the PCs going to have to try to go undercover in what they're doing, since the professor has so much support?
So yeah, the professor reacts to this, especially if the PCs kill the professor's students, potentially leveraging connections to go after the PCs socially, rather than sending a death squad after them.
And I imagine if the PCs find some friendly person who's trying to help them, that person may also be a devil in disguise.
Yep.
It's yes.
It easily might. Mm-hmm. The PCs have to build support or alliances to deal with this as they continue to thwart the professor's short-term plans. Mm-hmm. Eventually, this might lead to an escalation, especially if the PCs keep killing the professor's students. It could also lead to a more social conflict altogether, where the PCs continue ending things non-violently and even manage to try to talk down the professor's allies.
There's an idea of infiltration in there, or like
even the professor.
The PCs have to take his class and get an A to join his research, like somebody trying to get on the inside to figure stuff out.
Yeah, the PCs might instead wind up trying to infiltrate the professor's team and sabotage from the inside. Mm-hmm. In the fully violent endgame, the PCs go up against the professor's nearly completed research, and the planar schism might even be like fired or stolen by demons and devils.
Yeah.
At the climactic final battle.
And then there's kind of like an I told you so. It's like, you're the one who took down the defenses. You're working for the demons. And then it's just utter chaos. And the PCs have to stop. The PCs have to like march into hell to get the players' it back or whatever.
That's right. So what's interesting about this villain is that we understand the villain's motivations, their allies, and the allies' motivations, which could be different and are, in most cases, pretty different here. Their enemies, and their enemies, the flaws that make their enemies not just like, well, all their enemies are the good guys,
and all their allies are the bad guys. Yes.
As well as what their actual power sources and resources are, so that we can then try to piece together this very patchwork, and also kind of, it's not railroady. It even considers the PCs trying many different kinds of solutions, but this sort of patchwork idea of how things might go depending on how the PCs interface with this villain.
And there's a comment too, this feels more like a build an adventure workshop at this point. Yeah, I mean, I think when you have, this would be multiple adventures that you would have with this particular villain, and it's more when you,
it's even multiple possible adventure
lines that you might have depending on how you want to do this. Exactly.
When you have a villain, you don't need to think of everything that's possible, but you want to roughly think of some of the high probability scenarios. And then make sure that the villain is interesting in all of those scenarios. Because if there was one of these that we put out there and be like, well, that would just be boring. But the PCs might try to do it because it seems like it would be successful.
Yeah.
Then we know we need to go back and adjust one of the other sections.
And then we also know that we can work with these different pieces for a lot of different approaches. We know what the priorities of this professor are. We know who they can call upon as allies and what those allies are trying to do and who's working against them. So then you can think, based on how the PCs act, how would the different players on this stage act?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So, also you can add in more things with these connections, just to make things more interesting, or to like strengthen some of the connections. If you're thinking, okay, all of these people are, they have a reason to support the professor, but they're kind of tenuous, but you could have like the professor be in a romantic relationship with any of these people, the provost, the general, the second princess, the high priestess, probably not the Enigma, but who knows? And then you have a thing where if they wind up being someone that the PCs kill, it could throw the professor like off the deep end in what the professor is doing and focusing more on getting vengeance against the PCs due to them just sort of in general being emotionally effective. And that could be an interesting idea of even if it's just that killing the students makes the professor angry, because this professor is obviously more of like a thinking, logical opponent, but by going on tilt and changing from this like, no, I know you're against my research, but I don't hate any of you. I just think that you're wrong about the devils and demons, into being like, into hell's heart, I stab at thee.
Yes.
Just kind of makes an interesting contrast.
And there's a question, do adventure ideas ever start with villain ideas? I assume like the Curse of Strahd and the Vecna books did. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have a recurring villain and it's like, okay, we want to have an adventure that features this villain and their deeds, then definitely worked on several adventures where the concept is, okay, you know, this villain is doing a thing that is advancing their goals. What is it?
Absolutely. So here we go. We've created this professor. We've come up with all sorts of details about the professor, but we've done it in a way that's fairly system neutral. You can turn the magic parts and some of the things about like powerful priests into... I mean, priests can have political power even if there's no magic in your setting. And the magic can be technology.
It could totally be technology, exactly.
And the weird occultists can be... Occult scholars might be like fringe scientists who are doing like some kind of bizarre signal processing of like cosmic microwave backgrounds or something like that. So, and the devils and demons could be aliens. Like there are a lot of ways you can switch those around to make this work for just about any tabletop RPG that you're playing. And that's because creating a good villain requires components that are sort of neutral across almost any different system. What makes the villain interesting is that they're not just one note, that they have some depth to them, that doesn't make them a Saturday morning cartoon villain, and that they have connections to other things, some of which might be unexpected.
Yeah.
And so we'll put all of this information in the Discord, which is at tiny.cc/arcanemark. I will put that in the chat just in case there's anyone here who doesn't know where that is. And yeah, I think that's just about it.
Sounds good. So we should do a poll for...
That's right. So please like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of workshop content. Also, it's a little bit
too long
for a single message. So put it
go.
up with 2 messages in the Discord. But we're going to go back and do one final vote for next Saturday's episode.
It looks like Matt guy voted for 3.
Tyranny.
Tyranny.
Right, so we will either build a hazard workshop, ask Arcane Mark, save my game Q&A, improvising in a rules-heavy system, Arcane Mark plays some sort of game here, Eldamon element, or other.
Indeed.
Mysterious other.
Yes, indeed. We have Matt guy's vote for 3.
That's right.
Improvising in a rules-heavy system as opposed to in a more rules-light system.
We have a vote for 5.
Eldamon element. If that wins, we will do a poll on the Arcane Mark Discord to figure out which of the elements we haven't done yet it will be.
That's right. So right now it's a tie. Anybody's vote could decide what next Saturday's episode would be.
Or we can roll off.
That's right.
If no one else has an opinion.
We have another vote for 5. Okay. So it looks like, unless somebody else votes for 3, that Eldamon element has it. So we can put up a poll for which Eldamon element to do right after this.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us.
And let me give you some quick XP before we go, everyone. So stick here for a second. All right. Your XP has been distributed. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday or Saturday or whenever you show up.